Here then is the mind-warping prediction of our first digital mystic, Meg. The old boy of the group, grumbling about millennials with its beige trouser pockets awash with Werther's original packets. Ironically, for being such a curmudgeonly old gruff piece of software, its chief stars look like a bunch of aghast toddlers stunted in the fetal stage by a careless smoking mother. Sensible World of Soccer is the 1995 sequel to Sensible Soccer, developed by Sensible Software in 1992. Sensible Soccer was never the prettiest girl at the prom, even in its heyday. It looks like a Subbuteo game viewed from the top of a cupboard. When its contemporaries of the era, the early iterations from Electronic Arts and Konami, were aiming to replicate the glitz and glamour of a BBC World Cup broadcast. Those games achieved that a little while ago, probably in the last generation, but Sensible was never really bothered about that at all. It didn't need to. It never needed to worry itself with contemporary soundtracks or accurate reproductions of Harry Kane's open-mouth gore. Seriously, can that guy shut his mouth? It can be just as daft as it likes, with its custom teams named after inanimate objects, because it's always been about the same thing: pure, simple, raw gameplay. The premise is simple, the mastery trickier. It's 8 directions and a singular kick button, but it demands that you move with the ball, or, well, you leave it behind. It's why it's still getting played today, despite a new title, Sociable Soccer aside, not emerging for a good decade or so. Even then, it's either the original or SWOS that is still favoured today. These titles are over 2 decades old at this stage. It's worth remembering how good these games are. The version of the game I'm using today is the browser version of SWOS 16-17, which was put together by the community at sensiblesoccer.de. Players and squads are up to date for somewhere around the beginning of early 2017. So in terms of England, while Gareth Southgate has replaced old hippo head Sam Allardyce and his pint of wine, we still have a digital version of Wayne Rooney wheezing around the pitch and Joe Hart in the goalmouth, probably dropping clangers left, right and centre, the dandruffy clown. While editors exist, they don't for the only version I have access to, so this will have to do. Sensi isn't as reliant on substitutes as the other 2 titles we'll be using, so I'll just use players from Southgate's 23 in the team, and utilise standby man Adam Lallana if someone gets injured or suspended. As we only have Joe Hart and Fraser Forster as keepers, Joe Hart keeps his place in the main XI, the lucky bugger. Remember, the rules are thus: I will create a tournament that mirrors the World Cup, select England as the players' team in coach mode, pick the first XI to the closest I think Gareth Southgate will choose, and then allow the game to just play itself. No other input from myself will occur. We will see every game England play. From this, we will get what each game predicts will be the eventual champion, the top goal scorer, and what point England board the plane home for a good slaughtering from the tabloids and those people on Facebook who seem to love using the caps lock key. The maximum size for a tournament in Sensible Soccer is 24 teams, so we'll have to make 8 mini-leagues, allow them to play up, and then set up friendly exhibitions from the resultant survivors, with winners and runners-up playing the appropriate teams in the knockout stages. So, waffle time finished, let's stick our faces in the group stages. No major surprises in the group stages aside from the highly fancied Spanish side being all 2014 and going out at the first hurdle. Uruguay would have been expected to come out of Russia's group perhaps, but Suarez and his gang were pretty toothless, bite pun, against what was probably a string of questionable decisions in the host's favour, and of course Egypt's flavour of the month, Mo Salah. Get well soon, Mo, hopefully you make it. The surviving teams from the groups A to F and H are Russia, Egypt, European champions Portugal, Morocco, France, Denmark, Nigeria, Argentina, Brazil, Serbia, Mexico, Germany, and the Group H winners Colombia and runners-up Poland, who will of course play England in the next round, depending on where they finish if England get out of the group. Shall we see?
Look, it's Gary Cahill.
England's debut match in the tournament sees them in uncharacteristically good form, putting North Africans Tunisia to the sword, emerging 4 goals to zip. Harry Kane scores 1, but is upstaged by his lessly famous striker brethren Jamie Vardy, who bags himself a hat-trick. There is a bad news spit gob in England's happiness pie, however, as Dele Alli picks up an injury and will be replaced in the Panama game by real-life standby Adam Lallana. God, talk about immersion breaking. So far, this is far from sensible. Against unfancy Panama, the sublime turns to ridiculous. If Jamie Vardy was having a party against Tunisia, he's having a full-on wine-soaked Roman orgy with boobs and phalluses everywhere against Panama. He scores all 4 goals in the game, giving himself an incredulous 7 goals in 2 games, and England are swanning into the next round without playing favourites Belgium yet. So on to Belgium, and England show up. The real one. In real life, when England play one of the fancy teams, they just don't win. That last win against a major nation in a tournament finals, in real life. A fortunate penalty scored against Argentina in the 2002 World Cup group stages. Before that, you've got to go back as far as Euro 96. In the Sensiverse, Romelu Lukaku basically turns up at Vardy's party, urinates on the speakers, throws up in the punch bowl and tries to finger bang his sister. It's a hat-trick for Lukaku and a dispiriting 3-0 defeat for England, who will now have to face Group H winners Colombia. As we get to the end of the group stages, let's have a look at the top goal scorers. No surprise to see Jamie Vardy out in front with a redunculous 7, with Antoine Griezmann behind him on 5, and a clutch of players including Lukaku on 4. Some real heavyweight clashes here early, which means some of the favourites have to go home. France find a way past Lionel Messi's Argentina 2-1, England conquerors Belgium lose an exciting contest with Poland 3-2, and Brazil knock out favourites Germany 3-1, getting some revenge for that catastrophic 2014 semi-final. In the other games, Portugal end Egypt's interest with a 1-0 win, Serbia pull out a great performance by beating Mexico 4-1, and Nigerian hopes fade after Denmark beat them by 2-0. As for England...
Look, it's Gary Cahill.
Colombia, one of the real star performers of the 2014 tournament, are seen as dark horses for this one. Having said that, they've started slowly, only winning 1 and drawing the other 2 in the group stages. Which England are going to show up? The dominant flat-track bully that punished the first 2 teams, or the meekos that were handed a bottom spanking by the Belgians? Well, it's the former. England beat Colombia by 2-0 with goals from Kane. There is a black mark though, as apparent star man Vardy gets himself sent off. He will not be available for the next game. England progress to the quarters with a bit of confidence to face an emergent dark horse, the Serbians. Da da da. Home interest comes to a stuttering halt. By home interest, I mean that Russia are out, as the classy French beat them 2-0 to advance to the Final Four. Portugal will not be adding World Championship gold to their cabinet this time as Denmark pull off a surprising victory. Brazil, surely heavy favourites by now, are in the semis after a tense game against the Polish. And now, well, I make that England a clock.
Look, it's Gary Cahill.
England's game against Serbia is a nerve-wracking affair. Serbia are probably further than they expected to be, and are going balls in. England? Well, this is the customary time to get the passport out of the hotel drawer, isn't it? At least there will be a giant Toblerone in the duty-free shop. Mrs. Southgate can eat that while she watches Coronation Street. But not so. You'll have to cope with the Mars bar, Mrs. Southgate. In the Sensiverse, England progress in an emotionally wrought fashion with goals from Captain Harry Kane and Eric Dyer. And you know what? It finishes 2-1. The semis await. This isn't sensible at all. This is the daft world of soccer. Daft. The first semi-final is an all-European affair and a rematch from Group C. France edged the first encounter with the Danish 1-0 and they only go and do them again in a thrilling encounter. A very good tournament showing that for the Danish.
Look, it's Gary Cahill.
Make no mistake, Englishmen find semis hard to achieve, and here they stand strong and true. Yet they face the ultimate cup blockers, the masters of the tournament, the boys from Brazil. Having said that, England come out against their illustrious opponents pretty damn strongly. So strongly that man Jamie Bleeding Vardy nets on the 10-minute mark. After that, Brazil pin England in their own half for the rest of the first period. There is a certain amount of realism on display here. This is how England would be if they took the lead early on in a World Cup fixture. Brazil have 5 shots on goal to England's 1 in the first half. Joe Hart, the keeper who wasn't actually there, rolls back the clock to his 2011 version, with some great saves throughout the match, as the second half follows the same path as the first. Yet, England actually do it. They hold on. They're in the final against France. Yikes. The pointlessness that is the third place playoff sees Brazil take out their aggression on the Danish, and they run out 5-1 winners for the bronze. However, all eyes are on that main event.
Look, it's Gary Cahill.
It's the final in the Sensiverse 2018 World Cup. France versus England. Nosebleed City for the English. The battle of the hotshots, Jamie Vardy on 8 goals and Kevin Gameiro on a whopping 10. Kevin Gameiro wasn't even under consideration for the French squad, let alone in the final 23, so for the purposes of this experiment, let's just say he's highly talented youngster Kylian Mbappe, who isn't even in the game. Hardly twins, but I'm working with the tools of an oath. And as neither score in the final, it means that Kylian Mbappe has won the Golden Boot just a sentence into this video. That is skill. It'll go a long way with abilities like that. No, the sole scorer in the Sensible Soccer World Cup final is someone yet to score in the tournament. Someone who was injured a bit earlier on. Another prodigious talent come good. It was none other than Dele Alli, who scores the only goal of the game in the 22nd minute, with England repeating their semi-final feat of running out as winners despite being outplayed, and yes, they are the World Cup champions. Remember, I merely set this team up, I haven't played a second of it. Sensible Soccer thinks that England will win the World Cup in 2018. And how do the English team celebrate? They just walk off. That's the climax. Was expecting something more, to be honest. It's old, this game though. So, Sensible Soccer has probably proved to be anything but probably. Anyway, maybe we should play a far more evolved version of the beautiful game. Something for the pros. See where I'm going with this? Yes. Next game, Pro Evolution Soccer 17.